Did Jacob actually wrestle with God? Yes. Errors in the Bible, or more specifically, Bible contradictions. Type that in Google and the first site you'll come across to is from American Atheists. On their site, they state, if written by a perfect being, then it must not contradict itself, as a collection of books written by different men at different times over many centuries will be expected to contradict each other. They list their contradictions to be the Sabbath day, the permanence of earth, seeing God, human sacrifice, the power of God, personal injury, circumcision, incest, trusting God, the holy lifestyle, punishing crime, temptation, family relationship, the resurrection of the dead, and the end of the world. If you've been counting, that's 15 contradictions listed. I'm not here trying to say that the Bible is perfect. I want to know if these supposed mistakes really show that the Bible is wrong. I looked into this a lot. This is like my third time going over this, but I really want to hear from you. Please share your ideas and arguments in the comment section. Let's talk about it. That's all I got for an opening.
Round 2, fight.
So Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. Genesis chapter 32, verse 30. No one has seen God at any time. God the only Son, who is in the arms of the Father, he has explained him. John chapter 1, verse 18. How is it possible that in the book of John it is recorded that no one can see God, but apparently in Genesis it's recorded that someone not only saw him, but wrestled him? These aren't the only verses in the Bible where someone can point out an apparent contradiction of seeing God or not. Just look at some of these verses claiming to see God face to face, and these other verses claiming that no man can see God face to face. I guess this is a contradiction. Now, seeing God. Can or can't you see God? But let's go back. What does it truly mean to see God? Yeah, I can read and see that it says face to face with God in certain instances. So I'll probably add that too to it. So what does it mean to see God and his face? Here's a big factor to consider. The Bible wasn't written in English. It was translated. Type in Bible Lexicon in Google, and the first site that comes up is from Bible Hub. When looking at Genesis chapter 32, verse 30, the root word for seen is the Hebrew word for ra'ah. While the primary usage of the word is to see, it can also be known as to behold, considered, and appear. Face, on the other hand, has a root word of pani, and while the primary definition is face or faces, it can be used as presence, front, before, such as I stand before you. While in the Greek, the root word for seen is horao. Uses of this word can also include I see, look upon, experience, perceive, discern, beware. Very similar to the Hebrew. So, Genesis chapter 32 verse 30 could be read as, so Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, I have beheld God presence to presence, yet my life has been spared. While John chapter 1 verse 18 could be read as, no one has perceived God at any time. God the only Son, who is in the arms of the Father, he has explained him. You're probably looking at all these words that face and seen could mean and might be saying that I am picking and choosing words that fit my interpretation. It's important to note that anytime when translating between languages, there isn't always a one-to-one word correspondence. In the context of the Bible, there are about 9,000 different Hebrew root words that are being used. 90,000 in today's Hebrew, and while there are about 171,476 English words in current use. But this isn't some type of challenge we face with ancient texts. It's a universal translation issue. Words can take on entirely different meanings based on the context available. A fact that is true with modern languages as much as biblical Hebrew and Greek. Let's take a modern example to illustrate this point. This is going to be some bad Spanish coming up soon. For example, look at translating popular languages such as English and Spanish. Take the English phrase, I am 25 years old, which is a direct translation to Spanish would sound unnatural. In Spanish, the phrase tengo 25 años, which literally means I have 25 years. While the English phrase focuses on being a certain age, the Spanish expression conveys the possession of those years, just as with biblical Hebrew and Greek. The translation isn't just about words themselves, but the culture and contextual meanings behind them. This is what's happening here. Seeing God's face doesn't actually mean seeing his eyes, his nose, his ears, all that. Rather, something along the lines of beholding his presence, glory, or to know fully. Or in the case of John chapter 1 verse 18, it could either mean perceiving his glory fully, or I'll give it to you, that no man can literally see his actual face and live. 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 16 touches on that man can't see or has seen his glory fully. 1 John chapter 4 verse 12 and Exodus chapter 33 verse 20 touches on the same thing. We can't see God fully. We can't fully understand his glory, even his literal face now. But what about the other verses? Even if those words mean to fully understand his presence, don't the other verses infer based on the similar wording? I mean, sure, based on a blanket statement, Peniel can literally mean his face, presence, or front. But the Bible already details what happens where people saw God's face to face, and it is consistent throughout the Bible. You just have to look at the context. First, let's look at Genesis chapter 32, verse 30. As early on in the chapter, the Lord has directed Jacob to return to the land of his fathers and relatives. He will learn that his elder brother Esau was approaching with an army. Fearing for his family's safety, Jacob sent them across the stream, isolating himself. While in isolation, Jacob encounters a mysterious man, in which they wrestle until daybreak. During the struggle, Jacob gets the man in a hole and demands a blessing from him. In response, the man renames Jacob as Israel, for he has contended with God and with men and have prevailed. After understanding the significance of this encounter, Jacob names the location Peniel, meaning the face of God, asserting that he saw him face to face. Now, did he literally fight God? No, it was an angel.
What did he say?
Now, don't leave the video just yet. My retention rate is kind of low as it is. I can read what just happened, just listen. The true identity of Jacob's wrestling opponent is elaborated in the book of Hosea. As expanded upon by the prophet Hosea, the account suggests that Jacob didn't actually wrestle with God, but a literal angel. In the womb, he took his brother by the heel, and in his mature strength, he contended with God. Yes, he wrestled with the angel and prevailed. He wept and implored his favor. He found him at Bethel, and there he spoke with us. And the Lord, the God of armies, the Lord is his name. You can say that Hosea introduced an angel to save the face that God can never be seen. But what the prophet mentions is consistent with how God communicates with people in the Bible. Throughout time, God often communicates with mankind using angels, intermediaries. Oh yeah. Throughout time, God often communicates his will through intermediaries such as angels and messengers. Typically, the narrative unfolds with the messenger saying, God told me to tell you X, making it appear as God spoke those words directly as himself. Think about this. If I mail my friend a package using the mail service, my friend will realize that I'm the one that gave him the gift, not necessarily the mailman, even though he handed the gift. But, gotta say, I gave him the gift. You better not give the gift. I did it. Let's look at the verses in the Bible where an intermediary would do something and the Lord will be the one who receives the credit. In Genesis chapter 18, verses 1-3, it is said that the Lord appeared to Abraham, but 3 men appeared, and Abraham was the one who called and said, My Lord. They were messengers of the Lord. They were his agent on the earth, acting according to his will to talk to Abraham. That was not God's physical body. In Genesis chapter 19, it is said that 2 men were sent to destroy the city, but it is said that the Lord destroyed the city. Joseph is usually accredited for the interpretation of dreams, but he would say that God is the one who interpreted the dreams. In Exodus chapter 33, verse 11, just a few verses from what we said earlier in verse 20, would you think it's weird how those 2 verses have seemingly opposing words but are so close together? Moses was literally talking to an angel on Mount Sinai. The Lord wasn't physically there, so why would the verse say face to face like a friend? Because based on what could be inferred earlier and what happens in the book of Exodus, even if there was still an angel as a mediator, they would still have great communication back and forth, probably like a 5G angel or something like that. Lastly, I like Judges 13 verse 22 because it details intermediaries, angels, and whomever perfectly. The whole chapter talks about the angel of the Lord. In verse 21, I pronounce his name correctly, incorrectly, don't know. In verse 21, when Manoah realized he was talking to an angel of the Lord, he either associated the angel with seeing God or the fire from heaven, but not his actual body. Granted, he thought he was going to die. I mean, if you saw God face to face and you will be down the spot, you probably would be thinking, oh no, I'm going to die soon, something like that. Once is a happenstance, twice is a coincidence, and 3 times is a pattern. Now, seeing God. These are not contradictions. The apparent contradiction between Genesis chapter 32 verse 30 and John chapter 1 verse 18 about seeing God can be clarified when we look upon the meaning and nature of what does it mean to see God's face. While Jacob encountered an angel, the book of John refers to receiving God in his full glory and essence. Think of it this way. It's the difference between catching a fleeting glimpse of someone from afar and truly understanding and recognizing their entire persona up close. Bring me a toy. You got 3 throws, man. 3 throws. Use one of those.